This is the homework for 8, 125b and c, 126a and c, 128, and 131. In problem 125, you need to compute each product or quotient and convert the final answer to scientific notation. So for B, we're multiplying the two. And what I want to look at is I have the coefficients and the powers of 10. So I'm going to multiply these two. And the nice thing about multiplying in scientific notation is that you don't have to have the same exponents for the powers of 10. It's not like when you're adding or subtracting them. So first I'm going to multiply the two coefficients and then multiply the two powers of 10. So 1 and 7500ths multiplied by 8 is 14. 10 to the negative second power multiplied by 10 to the negative eighth power. You keep the base, and then you add the exponents. So negative 2 plus negative 8. And negative 2 plus negative 8 is a negative 10. Now, when I had 14, that's not in scientific notation. Remember, the coefficient has to be greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. And 14 is greater than 10. So I need to reduce this by one place value. And I need to, so if I reduce this by one place value, minus 1, I need to increase the exponent. So negative 10 plus 1 is negative 9. Here I'm dividing two terms in scientific notation. And so I have 9 times 10 to the 5th over 4 times 10 to the 7th. Well, I can treat this like two different problems. I have 9 divided by 4 is here, multiplied, and when you're dividing powers of 10, you keep the base, which is 10, and then remember you subtract the exponents. And remember the division bar, fraction bar, is just a reminder to subtract 5 minus a positive 7. 5 minus a positive 7. And now I simplify it. 9 divided by 4 is 2 and 2500ths. And then 10 to the 5th minus 2 gives me negative 2. And remember, when you're subtracting integers, you find out which one is greater. I have more negatives than positives, so I know my exponent's going to be a negative. In problem 126, I need to simplify and solve each equation below for x. So I want to solve for x, so I'm going to do inverse properties. Inverse property of addition is subtraction, so I subtract 3 from both sides, created a 0 pair. 24 minus 3 is 21. Inverse property of multiplication is division, so I'm going to divide both sides by 3, which creates the big 1. 1 multiplied by x is going to be x. 21 divided by 3 is 7. So 7 equals x, or x equals 7. And then you always want to put your answer back in, your solution back into the equation, and to make sure it's true. 3 multiplied by 7 is 21, plus 3 is 24, so that is true. For B, we need to do distributive property first, so we need to simplify this. So, and remember that when we distribute, you have to distribute to each term inside the parentheses. So 3 multiplied by 2x is 6x. 3 multiplied by negative 3 is a negative 9. Now we're just going to do a series of inverse operations. We want to get x's to the all to one side, whichever side has the greater value. So there's more x's on this side. So we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. 0 pair. 6x minus 4x is 2x. Inverse property of subtraction is addition. So we're to add 9 to both sides, created a 0 pair. Now we have -5 plus 9, or 9 minus 5, which equals 4. Inverse property multiplication is division. We divide both sides by 2. Create the big 1. 1 multiplied by x is x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. For problem 128, you need to find the scale factor between shape A and shape B. So from shape A to shape B, you can tell that it's increasing in size. So if it's increasing in size, that means that the scale factor has to be greater than 1. A scale factor of 1 would keep shape A the same size. So we know that the scale factor is going to be greater than 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from B to A, how did we get from B to A? So here's the two correspondings with the given values from 20 and 8. So 20 to 8, or 20 divided by 8, equals 2.5. So if I were to multiply 2.5 times 8, I would get 20. So the scale factor from A to B is 2.5, or 2 5/10. If we were trying to find the scale factor from B to A, we would be decreasing in size. So again, a scale factor of 1 would keep this size, the original size. So multiplying by a scale factor of less than 1 will decrease it. So how did we go from here to here? So 8 over 20, and 8 divided by 20 simplifies to 2/5. For part B, I needed to find the missing sides for S and T. So you do that by finding using the corresponding sides. So I'm going from A to B, and I have 8 to 20. That was given, 8 to 20. And then I'm going to do T. T is on B, so I'm going 16 to T, 16 to T. And you have to, the reason why it's important to make sure you have your labeling here is that all of these values are from the A triangle. These values are from the B triangle. And now I cross multiply. 8 times T is 8T. 20 multiplied by 16 is 320. Now I do inverse operations. Divide both sides by 8. Creates a big 1. 320 divided by 8 is 40. So we have T equals 40. So, and I can put that in there. To find S, we do the same thing. S, A to B. S over. To find S, we do the same thing. S, A to B. S over 35, and then an 8 over 20. So I have A to B, 8 over 20, S over 35. Cross multiply. S multiplied by 20 is 20S. 8 multiplied by 35 is 280. Divide both sides by 20, created the big 1. 280 divided by 20 is 14, so S equals 14. Part C says if you wanted to make shape A smaller instead of bigger, what is a scale factor you could use? Well, if I multiplied by 5, that would increase the value. So if I had the value of 10 and I multiplied it by 5, it would now be 50. So 5 would not not decrease, it would increase the value. And if I multiplied by 1, it would stay the same. 10 multiplied by 1 is 10. So it has to be less than 1. And now if I multiply by 0, 10 multiplied by 0 would be 0. So that would make the figure disappear. So in order to make the shape smaller, the scale factor needs to be greater than 0, but less than 1. In problem 131, Daniela has $210 in the bank. So that's what she's starting with. And her balance is growing, so that means she's adding to her bank account, not taking away. She's not spending, so we're adding to it at a rate of $3 each month. Lori has $187 in the bank, so that's what she's starting with. But her balance is growing at a rate of $4.50. So hers is growing, so we're adding to it at a rate of $4.50. So you can see that Lori is saving more money than Daniela, but Daniela started with more money than Lori. So you need to write a system of equations to find when the girls will have the same amount of money. So when they are equal to each other. So first we have Daniela, and I'm going to write it in y equals mx plus b form, slope-intercept form. That's our equation. So y is the total. 3 is the growth rate, how much it's growing. It's growing $3 each month. X represents months. And the y-intercept, or the initial value, is $210. Lori, y is the total, equals $4.50 per month. X represents the month, and this is how much she's saving per month. And she started with 187. So that's the initial value, the y-intercept, or in y equals mx plus b, that is the b value. X is the month, and m is the rate of change. So now we're going to set these two equations as a system. So y equals 3x plus 210, y equals $4.50 x plus 187. So we want to find out when they have the same amount of money. So this one's Daniela's and this one's Lori's. So if they have the same amount of money, they will be equal to each other. Well, if this is what y equals, and this is y, we can substitute y with this value, because here it says y equals this. So if that's what y equals, we can plug it in for here for y. Now we have Daniela's equals Lori's. So we took this part of the equation and plugged it in for y, and it's the left side of the equal sign, and here's the equal sign. Well, that's where it is. And then this part is on the right side. Now we solve for x. So we have a higher value of x is on the right, so we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. Inverse property of addition and subtraction, 0 pair. And now we have $4.50. X minus 3x is $1.50. And now we're going to subtract 187 from both sides. Inverse property of addition is subtraction. Created a 0 pair. 210 minus 187 equals 23. Now we have multiplication. Inverse property multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by $1.50. Created a big 1. 1 multiplied by x is x. And then what you do to one side, you do to the other. So 23 divided by $1.50 equals 15 3/10 repeating, or 15 1/3. So since x represents the number of months and we set the two equations equal to each other, the girls will have the same amount of money in 15 1/3 months.